Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Despite some friction going down at the end of this most recent season between Dashy and Ghosty, Dashy has given Ghosty quite some credit for his turning of the team around when he joined the roster in the middle of the season after an absolutely disastrous start. If you can do the same thing again and keep these attributes up onto Los Angeles Thieves, could they be more of a contender than some people are realizing at the moment? Very much enjoyed to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. First of all, wanted to mention that for the World Series of Warzone going on next weekend, September the 16th, they will be giving away MW3 beta codes, which is, you know, this is cool. It's a good giveaway for watching and all this stuff. Kind of a shame, I think, that it's not possible to do this for the World Championship because the actual COD World Championship was so early comparatively to when the new game is going to launch. The beta wasn't even announced yet. They couldn't do anything like this, which is a bit of a shame because if the World Championship was as it usually is in, let's say, you know, August or even back in the day, sometimes it'll be a little bit, you know, the last event would be even a little bit later than that. But if it was around about mid-August, you'd think they might have been able to find a way to do this, but, you know, whatever, it doesn't really matter that much. So 50,000 beta codes are going to get given away, so you've got to watch a minimum of 60 minutes to qualify, something like that anyway, and I think it's just a one-day event on that Saturday, September the 16th, to let you guys know about that. Now, we've also got to look at some of the follow-up here to the flank drama that we talked about last night. ZooMaa responded to what Ben had to say on stream, some of the frustrations, and we got a little bit more of that before the tournament itself actually went down, and ZooMaa and Ben kind of had this like confrontation kind of thing on stream, and like I wanted to share a couple of minutes of this really just to kind of hear what's going on. You know, it's interesting, right? Because yes, Ben was the first person to kind of bring this up on stream. ZooMaa wasn't happy about the way some of the stuff was being interpreted, and sure, some people heard Ben's comments, heard ZooMaa's response, and said, well, Ben wants the show to go here, ZooMaa doesn't want the show to go there, so, you know, they can make their opinion up as a result of that. And, you know, ZooMaa, as far as I'm concerned, was pretty much gaslighting Ben here a little bit, because he's saying, oh, Ben, like, you think I don't care about the show? It's like, obviously, Ben doesn't think ZooMaa doesn't care about the show. So, you know, I was a little bit surprised at the way this whole thing was handled, to be perfectly honest. And I don't know, it's interesting just to see some of the reaction here, because I think the reason why Ben went public with this stuff is because, as he actually mentions in the clip I'm about to share, 8 months or so, he's kind of made his problems known on certain elements, and these are problems in addition to what he mentions on stream. He talked on stream about a couple of things, but there's other things, maybe involving Paddy Pete, we don't really know, that he hasn't been so happy with, that, you know, he's been bringing up for 8 months, nothing's happened about it. Not all of that is necessarily ZooMaa's fault, but I think Ben saying what he said on stream is kind of getting the ball rolling to try and move the flank in the direction that he wants to. And yeah, my feeling as a result of this is like, I don't see ZooMaa wanting to make the changes that Ben wants to make.
You made me look pretty bad. You tried to make me seem like I don't give a f***. That's what you try to make me seem like. And you know that's not true. You know that's not true. Also, the whole all we do is scream at each other on shows is cap. That's just dumb. That's just dumb. Oh, my bad. I can't say cap. Sorry. That's very immature. I talk like a little kid. Sorry. Let me not say cap. But it's a little weird that people think we just yell at each other on the show. That's just not true. Sometimes we yell at each other. Yes, passionate people with passionate opinions are gonna yell at each other, bro. That's part of what makes the flank, bro. Like, if people don't like that, then they shouldn't watch it. They just shouldn't watch it. They should go.
All I'll say, Tom, is like, I really would prefer if we didn't have this conversation now on stream, but like,
bro, you're the one who brought it up on stream. You're the one who brought it to stream.
Listen, Tom, there's a whole list of stuff I'd like to talk about, and I'm not gonna talk about on stream. You know that I have other issues that are not public with things around the show, and I think the content of the shows I am less worried about than some of the other issues that I have, and I'm not talking about the other stuff on stream.
Man, and you know for a fact, right? What were you just about to say? You know exactly what I'm talking about, right?
You know what some of the stuff is.
And I don't disagree with you privately. I'm on your side with a lot of the shit that you're talking about, Ben. I'm on your side.
My issue is I've been talking about it for like 8 months and it hasn't gone done.
8 months? So like, what are you talking? What are you talking about? Well, if we want to talk about people having meetings without me, right? Without me, that's something I should be talking to you about, because how many times do you have fucking meetings and get on calls and don't tell me about them, and I gotta find out through the grapevine that you were saying this, and I gotta backpedal and try and figure out what's going on. So that's one.
What situation are you talking about?
Oh, all the time. And you're always getting on calls and you fucking don't tell me what's going on. Hey,
guys. This is why I didn't want to have this conversation on stream.
Yeah, because it's true. And Ben, at the end of the day, bro, it's all love. You know I love you, bro. You know I love you.
No, I know.
But
I just want listen.
It hit a soft spot, bro, when there's people on Reddit saying that I don't care about the show and that you care about the show more than me.
It doesn't matter what those people.
But
think,
you
bro.
were spewing that shit out there. You're spewing it out as if I don't give a. When you know how much I care, you know this.
We already talked about this like earlier. That's why I didn't want to bring this up again. Like, I obviously like
care a lot, man. I care a lot, bro.
You know what I said to you in text, bro. I don't want to say it on stream. Like, let's end the conversation.
I know what you said to me.
Now it was funny for a second. Now I'm actually getting annoyed.
So I know they kind of like made up at the end and said, oh, you know, still love you, bro, and all this stuff. Still the duo, right? So it used to be, as I said yesterday, ZooMaa and Ben, the flank. That's, you know, it's not just ZooMaa's show. But look, at least it wasn't back then. But ZooMaa's stream is doing great and perfectly fine on its own. And I think, you know, Ben would like to see the flank move in a different direction because the flank isn't as massive of a part of ZooMaa's stream as, you know, it is, let's say, during the regular season. I'm not saying that they need to run a show every day, but I mean, Ben wants them to just do a show every week. I think that would be a pretty good compromise way to make it happen during the off season. But yeah, just listening to what they said, it doesn't sound like they're really still seeing eye to eye on this stuff. I know that they probably have discussed things off stream now as a result of this, and probably not in the manner that they would discuss things on stream, because, you know, we've got ZooMaa saying, oh, you know, I can't believe people say that all the show is yelling. Well, pretty much just yelling that point across into the microphones. I was like, you know, I don't know what I think about this whole thing, really. I think Ben, like, you know, I think Ben and ZooMaa both have the best intentions of the show in mind, but ZooMaa is pretty satisfied probably with how it is now. Ben wanted to go a different direction, and, you know, I just wonder whether if ZooMaa says, look, this is how it's going to be, and, you know, like it or lump it type thing, and Ben might potentially step away, do something else. I know that people were mentioning that if Ben was just to step into like a, you know, fully executive producer or producer role off camera, maybe that would be kind of beneficial, but I'm not sure that it would be necessarily. And I still maintain personally that the best version of the flank was when it was just these two with some guests that would come on, and it wasn't just like the roast of Ben, which it seems to be pretty much every single week when Pat is on there. But there were other more, you know, engaging discussions maybe between some of the players that would come on as guests. So anyway, that's kind of the way things are going right now with the flank. I don't know if I'm expecting any changes with this, but I just feel like if the status quo is retained as it presently is, I can imagine Ben getting somewhat more disillusioned than he has already indicated on stream over the last couple of days. Now let's talk about this whole Dashy versus Ghosty thing, because it was a big talking point of the end of last season. Clearly, despite all that Ghosty did for the OpTic lineup, they've got Kenny instead. And I think that's a pretty good decision to get Kenny based on what he's talked about on stream, the type of character that Kenny is. I think he can be a really valuable asset to the team. But nonetheless, the general perception of OpTic fans was at the end of the season, obviously Dashy is not going anywhere, Shotzzy is not going anywhere. Ghosty, a lot of people would say keep him around and then just swap Hook out for Pred and then run it back like that, and that's a pretty good upgrade. That's not what OpTic decided to do. They got rid of Ghosty as well, and, you know, it was made relatively clear after the season that especially Dashy and Ghosty didn't necessarily see so eye to eye. I think it's understandable. Ghosty's a rookie, you know, a raw player, very much so. And isn't necessarily seen as the easiest player to work with always. Dashy, I think, certainly felt that at times. And it got to a point where they decided that Kenny was, or Drazah initially, and then Kenny was a better option than keeping Ghosty, despite how he'd definitely helps turn their team around. And Dashy absolutely, you know, agrees to this in a clip that was coming out during that Black Ops 3 throwback tournament, where he says, you know, the start of the season was obviously an absolute shambles for OpTic, right? They started off not looking so good. Scump was obviously, well, he was going to keep playing at the time, but then quickly afterwards, that was not going to be the case any longer. And they go to the first event, they get absolutely body slammed. Dashy believes that he's going to get dropped based on, he basically sees like Scump and Rambo and Dashy, or Shotzzy, sorry, not Dashy, of course, himself, having a conversation. And then Dashy theorizes, all right, I'm probably out of here. Dashy gets dropped, Scump decides to retire, it's absolute chaos, and the one guy really that kind of brought some method to the madness was when Ghosty came in. Because yes, they'd come top 4 at Boston with Illy, and that was okay, but it still wasn't great. And when Ghosty came in, I think a lot of OpTic fans didn't really expect much. I mean, OpTic don't sign rookies, it wasn't really expected, but you know, for them to be anything good, and all of a sudden they start breaking records going, I mean, they were the only team, the first team ever, to have back-to-back 5-0 online stages, for example.
Team was just a circus, bro, for the first 2 events or the first like 3-4 months.
We shouldn't like hard chow our spawn unless like the trade's already going down. Like we lost the trade, like, we should give it up. Like even if they get another dunk, like it's worth 1 dunk.
A big credit to that was like to Dan and I mean, bro, like our team was. Yeah, we were good, but actually, no, we were pretty good to be fair. But we just like had, I don't know, we just started off on a really like on a really bad foot, to be fair.
So I do believe it's the case that especially at the end of the season, Ghosty and Dashy, as I say, didn't necessarily see so eye to eye on certain things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Ghosty wasn't an important player for the team. It also doesn't mean that he can't be an important player elsewhere. Most rookies we've seen over the last few years don't, you know, it's rare for a rookie to come in and have their best season immediately, you know. Usually they get better over time. Standy is an interesting maybe counterpoint there, just because Standy came in halfway through Cold War and was phenomenal through the rest of Cold War. Since then, Standy maybe hasn't been quite as good as the glimpses he showed. Not even the glimpses, really. Like, he was just really good for the entirety of the rest of that season. And there's players such as Scrappy that you're like, Scrappy just came in as a rookie. Can he even get better? You know, Scrap was literally a 99 overall this year on the Lion Man cards. Like, how do you get better than that? But then you've got players such as HyDra, and to be fair, Pred was pretty spectacular in his first year as well, but I feel like in some parts he got even better this year, especially in Search and Destroy, and HyDra has improved substantially through his rookie season. And you can expect the same thing as well, I think, for Ghosty, right? Comes into OpTic, isn't there to be the slayer, but nonetheless, from a communication and also potentially leadership perspective, maybe in and out of the game, had clearly massive benefits to the SMGs on that roster and to the team in general. Dashy says, yeah, like, Dan deserves a lot of credit for doing exactly that, but obviously they think that Kenny can do an even better job, and there's effectively been a bit of a trade here, right? Like, Ghosty from OpTic goes to Thieves, and Kenny from Thieves comes to OpTic, and now Ghosty has the task to do potentially something similar with a brand new set of players. And if Ghosty, you know, it's difficult to know how much credit Ghosty deserves for the success they had, but I definitely feel like it's at least quite a lot. I mean, there's other, you know, maybe you give JP some credit, maybe you give Hook a lot of credit as well, but I think Ghosty, you know, without Ghosty, I really struggle to think that they actually turn their season around there. I think he, you know, very vocal player and helped turn some of their culture in the right direction. Now, that wasn't enough for them to keep him along, of course, and now he comes into a Thieves team where those attributes may well be all the more necessary, right? It's potentially a similar situation with, you know, it's not clear at all that JoeDeceives, Afro, and Cammy is going to be a functional trio of players in the same way that it wasn't really at all clear that Dashy, Shotzzy, and Hook was going to be massively functional, especially after all the drama of the early part of the season. So maybe there's something to be said for the value that Ghosty will bring. And I think, you know, as far as I'm concerned, Ghosty was a bit of a no-brainer to get onto Thieves. The question for me was whether you'd get a boozer or whether you would, you know, how good Cammy's going to be in this new game. That's the question that most people have right now. And obviously Thieves are taking on some degree of risk in the sense that, you know, if Ghosty did have some friction with the OpTic team, then it's not guaranteed that that doesn't happen here. But they've got a very strong coaching staff at Thieves. They've got Jacob, they've got Shane. I think that they will have to, you know, be making sure that these guys are getting the culture set as they would like to. But yeah, I definitely think the upside of this team, of all the other teams, especially at the start of the season, I do like the Boston team as time progresses, but I'm not convinced that, you know, Sasha, Priestahh, Capsidal, and Snoopy are going to be insane immediately. I think they might take a little bit of time. But I think that Thieves, especially because when Ghosty came into OpTic, okay, they were a little bit shaky and they almost dropped out of their own tournament in top 12. But as soon as, you know, a few tournaments in, or a few matches in, they were pretty much immediately at the level they were for the next couple of months. So if Thieves can do that, I think they can be top 4 contenders early on. Now, probably the #1 team contender is going to be the Atlanta FaZe, and I saw this in Breaking Point predicts the way too early predictions where you think they'll finish in the standings. Will FaZe ever not be the #1 standings team? Because FaZe have been #1 in the standings the last 4 years in a row, and we're going into what is potentially the 5th and final year of the CDL, right? Like, I don't think it's guaranteed the CDL continues beyond 5 seasons, because let's be honest, when the CDL came around, many of us said, give it 5 years and we'll see. That's probably going to be it for it. So here we are, we're going into season 5. FaZe will be the favourites to be the #1 seed again. They've made an upgrade, I think, theoretically, in terms of the roles on the roster, allowing Cell to be a true main and Drazah comes in as the flex. Yes, there's OpTic, yes, there's Tron Toronto. Yes, there's Subliners. Will any of those teams upset FaZe to be the number one in the standings? Not like number one in the standings really matters anyway. Like, okay, it's nice for seeding for champs, but it doesn't really matter that much. Like, no one looks back on the last 4 years of the seeding and says, wow, congratulations, FaZe, number one in the standings every year. They say, out of the 4 years, you won 1 world championship ring, and, you know, 3 other organizations won the other 3. But very much intrigued to hear all your thoughts on this in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.